hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have an exploratory trip with Elizabeth Tripp. Elizabeth is a New York-based lifestyle design coach, dietitian, channeler, radio talk show host on talkradio.nyc, does a little bit of everything. Elizabeth, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Brandon, for such an amazing intro there. I am quite a trip. I'm just going to preface the conversation as such.
I was about to say, you do a little bit of everything, even laugh at my really dumb jokes. So yes, you're multi-talented, because you have to really go down deep to laugh at my trip. Elizabeth Tripp is taking us on the trip joke.
Well,
I'm sure you've never heard
something
it.
about your energies. It makes me laugh. So that's a good thing. I think we're going to have a beautiful show tonight. So I'm excited.
As long as we're laughing together, as long as you're laughing with me and not at me, we're all good. Either way, we're all good.
True. Yeah, excellent. I'm super excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for being here. And I want to start you off with the same predictable question I always throw out my guest, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
I love being a catalyst for transformation for people and their lives. Really being able to hold space for somebody and have them see themselves through our conversation and ultimately transform the way they see their life and the way that life sees them is my ultimate passion. And it is exactly why I'm on planet Earth, and absolutely love my journey.
You have figured it out. If you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others, right? As Gandhi once put it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that brings me an incredible amount of joy. And I wake up every day just so in love with what I do. And I couldn't be more proud to sort of do service of Source, the creator, and really be a conduit of that kind of energy. It's so enlivening for my body, my mind, and my soul. So yeah.
I like that, service of Source. Rolls off the tongue really nicely. And, getting to that point where you wake up every day, like you said, just excited to be alive and doing what you're doing. That's something that a lot of people aren't yet experiencing. I like to put it. They can and will if they choose, and that's what a lot of people on this show are somewhere in that process, right? Or maybe they're already there, or they're going to be there, or whatever. So if you would share a bit of your backstory that as we dive into your mind and heart and understand what led you to the place where you're waking up every day, so ecstatic to be alive. How did you get here? Sharing whatever feels
Oh,
relevant.
yeah. It's a beautiful question. Something I get asked, quite frequently. And, it always comes back to me, bringing people into this experience that I went through at a really young age. So about the age of, I would say 4 or 5, I can remember laying in my childhood bed. My heart was pounding, my breath was really labored. I was feeling terrified. And that's because when I looked up above me, there was this ghost, as many people would call it. What I thought it was a monster. I mean, it really looked like crazy kind of witch-like creature. And it
Mm.
was just hovering over me. And I was this like very sensitive, very in tune little girl. I could feel everything. And I was just scared out of my mind, Brandon. I mean, I
Right.
literally just put the covers over my head and I was like shaking underneath them. And I thought to myself, well, if I just barricade some pillows around me, this monster can't get me.
Mm-hmm.
And me and spirit goes through
Hmm.
walls, it goes through
Right.
dimensions. So it came through the covers and it was poking me and it was kind of making this laughing noise and I just was terrified out of my mind. And I remember I just kind of huddled underneath the blankets and waited for the sun to come up, literally. And when it did, I kind of peeked out over the covers and I, ran down the stairs and I went into my parents' room and I said, Mom, Dad, there was a monster in my room, this like witch kind of creature. It's so scary. And my parents, being these lovely people, really lovely, but, unequipped with the ability to,
Hmm.
be able to understand such an imaginative child. I mean, just they took what I said and like many other parents would, said, honey, that's just not possible, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
not true. And these experiences just kept happening and they kept reoccurring. And I kept having, contact with the other side, whether it had been this kind of creepy looking creature that I so thought I saw when I was little, or, something that would come through the wall, or, something that would speak through a doll. I mean, literally, I would have these experiences and time again, I would go to share them and it felt like nobody understood me, like nobody got it.
Mm-hmm.
And really interestingly, Brandon, the mind does a really funny thing when you keep hearing that what you're experiencing isn't real and what you're, going through is not, okay. It starts to tell you that, you're broken. There's something kind of wrong with you, and there's something different about you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was the first kind of conversation that I started to have with myself, probably at the age of like 6, 7 years old. Um, and that conversation was very uncomfortable for me because being an empath, like I mentioned, really sensitive, I could tune into the unknown and the unseen and just feel everything around me. To have my own emotions, to have them to deal with too, it was like, oh my gosh, so big for my body, for my mind. So I started to feel really uncomfortable in myself and kind of looked around and I thought, okay, well, how can I help myself? Because that's also something that, a normal little girl or boy does. It's like, how can I feel better?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that, there were lots of chips and cookies and sweets in my house. And I, found myself in the kitchen and kind of eating. And it was this really interesting thing that happened. Like when I had those comforts of food, I felt better. I felt like I could relax, like I could, feel calm and not so, uncomfortable in myself. But the body also does a funny little thing when we eat too much, right? When we push down how we feel, it expands. So I
Right.
became this kind of chubby little girl.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't, recognize, of course, at the time that, I was, gaining weight, but it was when I went to school and I was reminded by my peers um, that I was, bigger than all the other girls, that that story that I got when I was little about how I was different, how I was wrong, how there was something broken about me, man, it
Mm-hmm.
just got so much bigger. And yeah, it was painful. Like my middle school years were dominated by bullying. Like I, remember when a kid wrote me a letter and stuffed it in my locker and it fell from the floor and I opened it up and it had this bust written on it, or he hand drew it, and on it it said, Elizabeth, you're as big as a bus. And oh my gosh, my
Oh.
heart, it broke. Yeah, it was like that impactful. And I actually made a decision that day. I accepted that teasing, and I said to myself, I'm just not beautiful. Like I literally accepted that. My body, my mind, everything about myself accepted I would never be beautiful.
Wow.
And yeah, it was wild, but so crazy impactful for my journey. So I a couple years into this sort of really heartbreaking kind of, story with myself. I'm not enough. I'm not beautiful. I thought, okay, I'm just going to not eat. I'm going to give up food. I'm going to exercise. And I remember getting on a treadmill and I started to run. And I always say to people, that was the first time I ran, and I never stopped for 30 years. I just continued to run from myself. Um,
Mm.
And ultimately, what happened, Brandon, is I lost a ton of weight. I think it was like 50 pounds in, 2
Wow.
years. And I became this like physically beautiful human being. That's what
Mm.
everyone would tell me. Elizabeth, you're
Mm.
so beautiful. But what's really crazy is I still, no matter what I look like, no matter how much people told me that I, was a pretty girl, my story, my inside, what I had accepted to be true for me was that I wasn't. So it didn't matter. I had to push harder. I had to do more. I had to change myself or take the opinions and reactions of others and define my value about who I was. And I lost connection to myself. I totally disconnected from my body, lived from my head up. My gifts started to disappear, of course, because they felt terrifying for me and I didn't know how to actually use them effectively. And ultimately, I went through, probably another 15 years of being on a complete sort of roller coaster with myself, either binging on food or alcohol or prescription medication, or, over exercising and under eating, to ultimately, Brandon, attracting partners in my life, men in my life that quite literally mirrored to me all the pain that I carried. And
Sure.
so to kind of make this a shorter story, um, uh, eventually I went to school to become a registered dietitian. As you can guess, I was pretty food obsessed. And so it was only natural for me to fall into that space. But ultimately, I lived like a fraud. I felt like I was telling people what to do, but not ever really getting to the root or the source of what had caused them to have this imbalance with themselves, this
Right.
disconnection. And, back in 2013, as the universe had it, fate would bring me together to an ex of mine. But he was what I call like a soulmate that kind of woke me up in a really big way.
Mm.
Um, we had a really crazy relationship, and essentially he walked out and said, I can't do this anymore. And it was after 4 years of being together. And so much of myself depended on his love and his affection and his support. And I was just shattered. I was just completely crushed. And all of the old pain, like I'm talking all the way back to when I was 7, like hit my body, like literally opened up inside of me. And
Wow.
all of this, yeah, like you're not good enough, you're not beautiful, you're never going to be anything, all of these stories that I had created, how it was all my fault. Um, so I got to a place where I was thinking about, like what would be the point of even being here if life is a struggle, why would I want to be here? And that was a pretty scary thought to have. And ultimately that was after the breakup, and I was still kind of binging on alcohol and really depriving myself for really sound nutrition. I was really in a dark place. And a friend of mine said, just come and see this healer. Like, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're not okay. And like, I just feel like you need to go. So she literally like helped me get into a car. Like it was really wild. We just got into a car like the next day, and she said, "Let's go to Virginia Beach and you can see this
That's where I'm
healer
from.
and let's." Oh, no way, really?
Chesapeake,
Synchronicity.
Chesapeake, which is right next door. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, there you go. So we drove down. I went over the Chesapeake Bridge. I love that bridge. It's beautiful.
The Bay
And
Bridge.
yeah, the Bay Bridge. And I met a gentleman. His name was Alex, and he immediately, when he saw me, he said, "You're looking to be very powerful, aren't you?" And he's this very like gentle, soft Malaysian man, and I just started crying because I was like, I've never heard anybody ever say that to me, and
Right.
it was true. It was true. I wanted to be powerful, but I felt so incredibly powerless. And in that moment, in that session we carried forward, he just had this very gentle way of opening me up and helping me see that I was on a soul's journey and that my experiences in the past had been on purpose and for a reason, and that
Right.
I was here to learn and grow from every single experience that I had. And I looked at him and I was like, what? Like, what?
The realization that shifts everything.
Oh my gosh. It was just
It's
like,
happening for you, not to you.
exactly, Brandon. And it was the moment that I had to like take responsibility and reclaim myself and let go of everything I had taken on as a kid, everybody else's stuff and all their own insecurities and beliefs, and begin to rebuild who I was truly at my core. And so in a very short period of time, in 5 years, I actually quit my 9 to 5. I was a registered dietitian in New York City at Mount Sinai, and I started a practice, a healing practice, where I have now started to help ambitious men and women who feel stressed and overwhelmed really reconnect back to their body so that they can awaken their well being and ultimately love the life that they live. And I do that in lots of different ways, but that is my story. That's how I arrived.
Wow.
Yeah,
Quite the journey you've been on.
that is the journey. That is the journey. But it opened me up to this beautiful source of connection to myself, primarily through my body. When I came back to my body,
Mm-hmm.
um, I came back to my intuition, my soul, my inner brilliance. And that became a way of life. Whereas I opened that up, the connection to spirit returned, the guidance from, the other side, the, synchronicities just started to flow. And I recognized I'm a master creator of my
Mm,
life.
yes.
That was quite a realization. And I say that to you because I know you know that too.
Yeah, that
Um,
is the realization when it's, this is happening for me, not to me, and all of the power, is there within me in potential, right? The acorn
yeah.
is there, and with the right conditions, can become the oak tree, and not necessarily, but it can. And so, am I brave enough and bold enough to, like the gentleman that you met in Virginia Beach said, "Oh, you're calling in a lot of power." And I think that's
Yep.
a big realization for people. Is it's like, um, you know everyone has the potential to do it. Are you willing and brave and bold enough to call in the power of who and what you truly are? And I think that's a big part of the journey, and for the human journey, and for souls and spirits, is like, sort of this denial of who and what they really are. And it's like, no, I can't look at that. It's too much. I can't be that worthy or that great. And, realizing you're one with the source that creates and animates all things is a lot to swallow when you have had no idea or complete amnesia.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because post, that experience and obviously through this connection that I developed with him, it's like you're saying, all of what I know that I am at my core began to kind of make sense and it started to come alive. Like I am beautiful, I am enough, I am powerful. And as I started to grow that inside of myself and really believe those things and learn those lessons, my life started to reflect back to me the truth of that, which was magnificent because I was like, wait, just by me shifting into this and creating this, I can actually shift and recreate a new reality for myself. And I think, yeah, like you're saying, for people, in this particular time space experience, I think there are a level of maturity of the soul that we're starting to come into, that people are starting to open up and be more curious. And of course, there are the older souls that will be just drawn to a show like this and to our talk tonight. But it's that level of willingness, like you speak of, and that courage and that bravery to really, sort of take a look at the part of you that is not in sync with the essence of your soul being. And I think that takes a level of introspection. Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
courage.
Yeah, and as someone who's really helping people to do that, and we all have our unique ways. I think, I sort of have my approach to helping people to rediscover their power, and you have an approach that suits you, and it's like different flavors of, leading to the same end goal, I think. And in the
Yeah.
end, all the chess pieces, in the end of the game, all the chess pieces end up back in the same box, right? But I'm curious, for those out there listening, and there's been many that have heard, me many times, and of course you have your own approach. What are some of the key things for someone who is still, struggling with this? Am I worthy? You know, am I really that powerful in potential? Would that same man have said the same thing to me? Is it even a possibility? I mean, what would you say to anyone who's sort of back and forth with considering themselves in that light?
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that warrants just a little kind of like story of a client that I can kind of say has been in similar kind of space, right? So I have several people that come to me quite frequently, and it's not like you don't know that you're enough. It's just your life sort of starts to mirror that. You have trouble
Mm-hmm.
saying no. You can't hold strong boundaries. You worry a lot what other people think, and you kind of get caught up or swept away in really pleasing others and doing things to make them feel good because you feel responsible for their happiness. So I had a young girl come to me, and she was just, sitting in my office when we can be together, right? and
Mm-hmm.
she just was crying and crying and crying, and she said, "I'm so sad. I feel like a doormat. I feel like people just walk all over me. And as a result, I'm tired all the time. I have a short fuse. I feel like my mind is racing." And it was just in that session, I just got guided. Something just hit me, and it said, ask her about what it was like for her kind of growing up, and let her talk about the energy of home. And
Mm.
so we started to talk about it, and she started to share with me how her mom was very critical and really short fused herself. And anything she did kind of would set her off. And so she always remembers being in trouble and kind of
Mm.
being yelled at and told and expected to do things. And I said, for a little girl like you, as you can imagine, how would that have made you feel? And she's like, wow, like I'm not enough. And I said, yeah. And can you see how in mom's own way, she had her own stuff going on. She didn't know how to let out her emotions. She was feeling frustrated. Can you see in her own journey, she likely had some sort of story within herself about how she may not have felt enough or really respected or seen by her family? And so
Mm.
she kind of made this aha, and it was like, whoa. And I said, whose is that anyways? And she began to kind of understand where she got that feeling, where she got that understanding, and in her own experience, how she had created that story. And then we just gently let her to, sort of come to a place where she could safely release it and let it go because she saw how it wasn't serving her. And it's just very gentle, the process. And we created something new. I am lovable. I, people just love me. And here's why. And I said, why do people love you? And she said, well, I'm kind, I'm nice, I'm caring. I really, I show up for people, I listen. And she felt kind of uncomfortable in the beginning saying it, but then all of a sudden she started to light up, like her body felt good, like her whole system
Mm-hmm.
started to come in agreement. And it was there forward. She started to see me regularly. And now, she feels so good about herself. She's starting her own coaching business, and she's teaching other women to do the same, and this was over like a couple year journey, but that's the magic, right? Of someone who's out there who's feeling that same way. It's just a very gentle process of seeing where in your life did you react to somebody else and
Mm-hmm.
create a story, a script within you that now is not serving you.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding, like you did, that, you know, that story actually was planned so that you can
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity to overcome it. And as a result, that contrast makes, the sweet is never quite as sweet without the sour, right? And so that
Right.
contrast really makes it so that there's a deeper appreciation for who and what you actually are. And so once you start to understand, wow, okay, mom and her ignorance or, even verbally abusive behavior, maybe it could be considered, and every extreme of that was actually playing a role that was designed, you know, for us to come out the other side and overcome. And
Oh,
that is
you're
such a
speaking my
powerful,
language.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
so
love that.
amazing. when you get that.
Yeah, it's beautiful because the moment you realize that from the other side, right before you come down here, that you have this active role in the people that you interact with in your earth experience, right? In the game of life. When you're out playing it now and you're in the experience and you can wake up to that and you can make sense of it and it feels real and true for you, you can see how they serve as teachers. And all that like anger, right? All that sadness or all that, frustration or why didn't they do this or how come it didn't happen that way? I have found that it has just sort of been able to soften and over time, and even sometimes instantaneously dissolve because you then see the intricacies of the journey and the real beauty of being here, right? And the evolution and the expansion of ourselves through our experience, good or bad, as we call them, but just things that help us grow and learn. So that, yeah, is really, really beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things as people traverse this human experience that seems to be, we touched on a little bit earlier, waking up every day and really enjoying what it is that you're doing, and not only, and then you have sort of the people, well, okay, I can do what I love, but it pays peanuts, or can I really have a position or my life work be something that I absolutely am ecstatic to do and I can live super abundantly, right? It's like,
Oh,
do
yeah.
something, you do something that you love and you never work a day in your life, kind of thing. And have the abundance and all the things, lack of financial strain and stress. And I know that's something that you
Yeah.
talk a lot about, right? The prosperity gap. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
some of your thoughts.
Well, yeah, of course, sure. This is such a great question. So to kind of put this into context, in my personal belief and my opinion, I feel that every soul has something to fulfill here. There's something that they came here to do, something that only they can, as the unique soul that they are, can offer and provide. And so each soul has been gifted such beautiful talents and attributes and personality traits and kind of ways of thinking that, only they can give to the world, and that they've chosen this experience to share it because the world needs it. So it's almost like we come into our existence already abundant with all the right circumstances in place, all the perfect pieces together for us to find the way to self express, right? To discover what it is we're here to fulfill. And, Brandon, when we start that path, when we start that journey, and it can be as simple as just starting to ask ourselves, like, what truly brings us joy? And where in our life are we feeling out of alignment and not in agreement and, working against ourselves? Because that's where the lack feeling is being sourced from and pulling us away from the actual abundance in which we are already living, the perfect set of circumstances that are here for us now to discover what we're here to fulfill. So that would be the first step. And then once we start getting into that conversation in that space, in that place of expansion and learning and curiosity of ourselves, we start to learn the soul's lessons. We open up to a set of experiences that start to evolve and flow in that will provide us almost seamlessly. It sounds wild, but once we start to open up to what we're here to do, things start to fall into place and they start to happen synchronistically. That doesn't mean that you don't want to continuously focus your own attention and your thoughts and feelings on what you want to create and design inside of this discovery process, right? So when we want prosperity, when we want abundance, we already have it within us. it's a matter of helping the mind stay in a focused sort of fashion to be able to execute with such attention that you can allow what's already yours to flow in. So
Mm.
it's allowing yourself to get to the source of the lack, where you're feeling the limitation, where you're feeling the challenge, where you're feeling the disconnect. And and it doesn't even have to be about money. It really
Hmm.
doesn't. Like
Sure.
once you clear that out, once you get that out of your system physically, remember, because the body contains all energy, both current, future, past, everything the body has access to. So in this space of lack, you're literally sourcing your reality from. You want to release that energy from your body and get your mind in a place where it can actually receive. And that's how we close that gap. That's how we create a sort of uh, melding of what we desire and what we truly have. We want to clear out what limits us and really learn the lesson of our own true happiness, our own true power, our own true, strength and beauty, whatever it is for that individual, uniquely for them, because they have something here to fulfill, to do. You're going to access the abundance of what is the perfect set of circumstances that you've come here to experience for you to thrive, not just survive.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about our sponsor, KiwiCo. We all know this school year will be unlike any other, whether your kids are going back to school or logging into a classroom from home. And as parents, it can be really time consuming to give your kids the extra help they might need this school year. Well, this company, KiwiCo, can deliver a science fair / art class right to your door, and they have an incredible amount of highly creative do-it-yourself projects for all age ranges. As a huge music fan since about 12 years old, I personally would have loved building the real working light up speaker and headphones when I was just starting to jam out. As a parent now of a grown up kid, I wish I had had something like KiwiCo when my son was small, because I remember how hard it can be to find creative and new things to keep him busy and challenged on his own or to tackle together. And not only do they have different crates for kids of all ages, but they send one every month. Now, of course, there's no commitment and you can pause or cancel anytime you like. KiwiCo truly is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. They have something for every kid or kid at heart, and the best part is all UP heads can get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/positivehead. That's KIWICO.com/positivehead. Let's say an entrepreneur has something, or someone is trying to start up some sort of a business, and one of the things that you said, it's not always financial. It's like, oh, I don't have enough time in the day. Right? That's a resource. I feel like there's way too much to do and not enough time to do it. What would be your recommendation to that person? They're getting in that frantic state. That's where the gap is with them. It's like, I need to either clones, or I need more time, and I'm feeling frazzled. And what would be the antidote for that person?
Yeah. So you have to flip the script around time, literally. They have a I don't have enough time. And the moment you claim that and you accept that, so the moment that your body and mind, your physical self, your mind, everything in your system accepts that you don't have time, you don't have time. You will
Right.
not have time, and you will be pushing against yourself. So we want to bring you to, the source of that conversation, like where you always pressed for time when you were a kid. Is there, do you push super hard because you think you need to prove that you're better?
Yep.
Do you have, a paradigm around success there where working hard and climbing uphill are kind of the framework in which you only know to achieve? So there's all these different paradigms we want to investigate and kind of put our feelers into so that we can flip the script for that individual and soulfully, spiritually catch them up to, the infinite amount of time we have as a soul, just
Yeah, you're
dropping it in
floating
there
in
that like
eternity, by the way.
exactly like there's no end or beginning. And for
Yeah.
someone who like not used to the work though, that can seem like so massive. So for more of like the trend kind of setting conversation, I would say I hesitate to say it's just mindset because I think it's deeper. I think it's, a spiritual catching up there, but you really do want to, allow for yourself to see where you're in your own way.
Yeah.
and
Right.
and that's ultimately how the gap closes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked that one as an example because it's one that I can relate to and have really worked through, and am still, as someone who's very driven and takes on a lot and sort of has told that story of, oh, this is, I work harder than other people and all of that. And it's so empowering every time I hear it or drop into it as I further deprogram the narrative into something that's more empowering, that, it's working smarter, not harder. And smarter can mean taking time for yourself to, self-care and it's so can be so nuanced because you can be a really good storyteller, and that's something I say a lot on the show. It's like, look, guys, I'm just really good at making up stories, right? Abracadabra, I create as I speak, and I can be really good at telling stories in this area and that area, and then but in relationships, here's my story, or when it comes to work and how challenging it's supposed to be to quote unquote make it, or whatever. And so we've really got to continually self-analyze and pay attention to those places where we're weaker, if you will, and that's where our work lies, right?
Yeah, and I would even say, I think you're going to love this too, would be to tap deeper into your body around this conversation, because your body it remembers, any even slight traumas. So things that even kind of, put the nervous system in overdrive at all. And so when you can quiet yourself and just bring yourself into a space, into a place where you're maybe even heading into a deeper meditation, and you can just help the body acclimate to the infiniteness and the expansiveness and the quietness of, I have plenty of time. You're going to actually train not only just the mind, but the body to receive that. And when your physical vessel receives that, it almost leaves a larger imprint for you to feel, experience, and creatively flow from. And so when you ever get out of that paradigm, right? Because you're in that reprogramming space with it, you can feel it through the body and go, okay, oh, that's my old me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe do some like somatic body work with that. Yeah.
To me, that is such a powerful thing to do. I mean, even just you saying it in that moment, and you have that sort of, you have such a ease and grace, and yeah, I mean, you just have that energy of someone who's done the work, and you feel so easy, and that instantly, you saying it even there, it's like, oh, I'm going to take that on in this moment. And I literally felt it
lit up.
instantly throughout my whole body. And it's like, that story feels really good. Oh yeah, let's further integrate it. So it's like everyone listening to this podcast, such sensitive souls, right? So the good news is you are super sensitive, and you can start programming yourself with a story that feels better. Look at every story that you tell and say, I'm going to sit over here for 10 minutes in the corner. It costs me nothing, but, my imagination and calmness, and just start anchoring these powerful codes that change your experience into your reality.
Yes. And it's so cool to remember how powerful the body is, right? We sometimes forget about that because we hear a lot in mainstream, okay, train the mind and focus the detail and do these little meditation tricks and say these affirmations or declarations, but the body is quite literally the extension of self, source, creation. And so it already has all the information, all the inner wisdom. And it will quite literally talk to you and communicate to you when you're even the slightest off course, because the body's main mission is to get your soul to where it needs to go and the people it needs to meet to fulfill what it's here to do. So your body's like your best friend. Yet, culturally, socially in the Western world, we so break ourselves down physically, and we have such a big story about our appearance and our the way we look and the way we present ourselves, that we can't even sometimes even approach that relationship and until we clear out that part first, because it's so loud and so dominating. But that is a key real tool to sort of that masterful ease in areas of your life where you're finding still resistance and need of tweaking or deeper diving into the body is really powerful.
Yeah, we are like onions, right? It's layers and layers, and there's keep going.
I'm so blown away by like the process of learning. Like I just wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I still have so much to do. So it's so cool. It's so fascinating. I love it. Just really, really do.
It really is. It really is. It's humbling. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And it definitely, it's when you see someone really, really in their ego who thinks they've got it all everything figured out and they've sorted it all out and all the work's done, it's like, oh man, you still have a ways to go.
You're kind of like,
may the force be with you.
That's a great one. I love that. May the force be with you. And you sort of just take a nice giant step backwards.
Yeah, right. I'll be over here.
Exactly. I'm going to be over here. You can go over there. Give ourselves a little breathing room.
Exactly. So speaking of the force being with you, we talked a little bit before we started recording about spirit guides and mediumship and channeling. And, I had... during that conversation, we both acknowledged, hey, everything to some degree or another, I believe, is channeled. All artwork is channeled from, great art is channeled from your higher self, or, and when you take someone who is, having a very, I guess, direct channeling experience, or even in the most extreme examples, someone like Bashar, where it's like a different voice and a different energy, and this supposedly an extraterrestrial being who's coming through. I always approach these things with, most importantly, what is the information coming through? And what I find fascinating about it is some of the greatest teachers and books and, claim to be channeled material. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm open to the fact that that's certainly happening and believe to some degree, the most, inspired, inspired in spirit, inspiration, right? Inspirational art and so forth is in some way coming from higher self or what have you. And so, I love this topic. I find it fascinating and,
Yeah.
just curious as someone who has had an opening with that to it sounded like it really started early on with you, got closed off for a long time, and now
Mm.
it's a big part of your life again, correct?
Yeah, it's a really big part of my life. And I welcome it with such open arms because it's actually so comforting for me. Because for so long, and to kind of give the audience a little surprise, the woman that was hovering over from my bed when I was little, she had died in the house that I grew up in on Halloween. And
Oh,
so I had
wow.
learned that. Yeah, crazy. I learned that right as we were moving out of that house. I was 18 and my mom, said, I never got around to telling you, but there was a woman that died in the kitchen. She was making popcorn balls and they didn't find her for a couple of days. So when they did, she was rigor mortis and it all made sense. And I was like, what? And
Wow.
I literally was seeing her as she had in her last, how she had left planet Earth, like this kind of hunched over um, entity. Yeah. And so, at that time, it had clicked in for me. But now, after all those years that you guys heard about, I really welcome the other side into my life. It's something I have to develop. I've had to develop very strong boundaries with too. I mean, spirit, as much as, they are expansive and free, they also have an element of their own
Agenda.
personality.
Yeah.
And I like to think they may be egoless, but I actually think they do have a slight ego in some ways because uh, soulfully they level of different maturities. So
Sure.
you have to be very clear, like I'm welcoming them and I'm not, and you guys have to get out and you have to leave. Um, Being at the level that I'm at, it's sort of something that I have to always be consciously aware of because they're always kind of wanting to come through the fabric and as we know are always dancing around us. Um, so whether it's a past loved one or a spirit guide, or just simply something of even higher, more vibration like an angel or a master guide really depends on the client I'm working with or the situation that I'm in or who I'm talking to. And so in the process where I'm at now, I just sort of allow for what comes through to come through. And often I will get very direct and clear kind of information from loved ones when people really have a strong person from the other side that really wants to contact, or we can call them through. Um, and or if you have like a spirit energy or a kind of guide that you want to connect to, we can always call them in and have them transmit a specific information. So it's just a way of life. It's kind of funny. I know I might talk about it like kind of laissez-faire, but
Right.
uh, it's just a part of my being, and a very, very special gift that allows for me to work with people more profoundly, I feel, because in that capacity, when I consciously channel, that means that I'm literally opening myself up to just allow for what wants to share. And when I actually, in the few times that I've allowed something to step into my body, which is something I personally am training more to do, but haven't quite mastered, that's a completely different experience too, because I kind of step aside and that
Right.
entity or energy in actually over sort of drives my car, which actually would happen when I was little. So I used to sleepwalk with my eyes open, and my parents
Wow.
could never figure out why. And
Wow.
my teacher, my mentor, said, "Oh, well, spirit saw you as such a clear little conduit. They wanted to know what it was like to be human again." And so I thought, so okay. So they just came into my body, and he said, well, yeah, I mean, they saw you were open. So they hopped in, and I would walk around at night and have no idea that I was walking. I just would see myself walk and watch myself do that. And it was literally, I was operating from, something was operating. I call it my vehicle,
Wow.
not me. That was when I didn't know how to harness it. So now I'm in a space where I'm learning to do that more efficiently, and I'm practicing more to do. So it's very exciting, and it's
Yeah.
certainly a journey. Yeah.
Well, and as you connect with someone, you're working with someone, or in this case, podcasting, do you and I are having a two-way conversation and connecting and sharing. Is it something where you invited in order for, or do people's like, oh, okay, I'm talking with this person today, their spirit guides are there, or is it your spirit guide, or is there a particular entity that you normally channel that shows up?
Yeah,
How?
great questions. Yeah, I love it. I'll start from the beginning. Um, Before I go on like a podcast interview, or any interview, or even when I connect with my clients, and it's very intentional, I'll actually call in my own guides that I work with, and I'll say, come and be of service in this conversation, and share exactly the information that will be very transformative for the person on the other side, here in front of me, and the audience it reaches. Um, and then in that experience, I let what comes come. So I know my guides are behind me, they stand with me. And then I also can see into your guides, because I invite them as well. I say, okay, bring Brandon's guides in. And there is an energy and presence that stands behind you. So I don't get specific around that. So some mediums say, okay, who's the specific energy? For you, I know it's not a past loved one, but it's more like it's more of your masterful guides. And it was actually kind of teasing me, and saying, he's going to press you on a couple things, and we're going to talk about design, and so you're going to, you want to take him to your level too. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. So he's kind of like this, playful, very inquisitive, very really studies, and has a lot of information that he transmits to you. And I was very aware of him, and it's a him energy, a masculine energy, I call it as such. But yeah, he's been kind of working in the background. So I'm very aware of that energy. And so I kind of work both with what's behind me and what I see behind you. And then I'm inside our conversation. So
Cool.
does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. It makes total sense. It's very interesting. So, I mean, is it something where, okay, so my guide that you're referring to, you can just as
Yeah.
easily sort of connect and have a conversation as you and I are having a conversation? If you wanted to shoot a question, for example, right now, I mean, how is that received for you?
Yeah. So the way that the information kind of gets put across is they'll kind of rapidly talk. So there will be like a kind of rapid fire of information. And so it's really interesting. For me, I catch a few things. So there's like a sound around, for you, it's joy. There's something that they want me to talk about with joy with you, and letting that joy and feeling that joy and being in connection with that joy. And that's something when that in that regard will open up a lot of flow of energy for you. And so that is a sound that that energy keeps making. So I'm aware of it. And so I myself will tune into that. And if I tune into it more, could likely get even more information around it, and let that freely come out. But that was very specific of what, I was hearing. It's a joy, that feeling of joy, being in joy. Where are you in your life with joy and without? And so there's this joy that they're wanting me to raise awareness for you.
You know what?
Is
What
that
that?
hitting you in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. So what comes up for me when you say that is, once again, touching a little bit on my own journey as someone who can sort of take on a lot and work a lot. And that can, if I'm not careful, that can turn into, you know, me being more serious, maybe, more, go, 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 and not necessarily my greatest and grandest self, which is this very childlike spirit that is, loves to play and is very playful, and laughing being probably my favorite thing ever to do, and
Yeah.
humor and joyous celebration. And I think of my mother, who I'm very much like in a lot of ways. She always says, oh, you're from my side, not your dad's, but of course we're both. But, I relate very much to her and her energy. And she has a giant sign when you walk into her house that says joy, and that's like a buzzword for her. And so, and I got her a pin for Christmas last year, like a little antique pin that had holly on it and said joy, because that's like her
Wow.
word.
So
Yeah.
this is pretty awesome. Yeah, because that was very strong for me the entire time we've been talking. Is
Yeah.
that word? Yeah. That's wow. That's really beautiful. Yeah. And that's great. I love it.
Yeah, it really is. It to me, I take it as a reminder how important. That's not just something you should step into because you're at a celebration, but actually cultivating that joyous energy on a Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. when there's it's as humdrum as it ever could get, from a daily whatever's going on, and saying, this is a great time to tap into putting on a song that I love and dancing around the room for 10 minutes before I get to work, and drumming up that vibration, I think would serve me well to do more often, and everyone listening, consciously and proactively seeking it and not waiting for it to come as a byproduct of some happenstance.
Yeah, beautiful. Because the message really clearly is, we all are joy, and in that recognition, in the essence of embracing that and embodying it, it's this effortless expression of flow and creation and abundance. And when you're in that space within yourself, right, where you feel it not just on that mental, but physical and emotional and spiritual level, you can almost collapse time and really create with such expediency and focus and precision and with such happiness. And that's really what life is about. And that is life in its essence is, yes, the trial and tribulations of everything in between, but ultimately we're here to experience the joy of what is in being, and being in itself is joy.
Yes.
So yeah. That's
I
beautiful.
love that.
I'm so glad we got a chance to share that. Yeah, very, very
Yeah.
strong for you. So
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, one of the things that I love to ask is a story of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal story. And perhaps you have something up your sleeve that will inspire us even more than you already have. I love a good story time. My joyous celebration of fun stories. I absolutely thoroughly enjoy them.
oh my gosh. Well, I have so many, but I'm really coming back to this. This beautiful conversation of the way that spirit always supports you, and even in the times where you feel most challenged. So I'm going to pull out this really beautiful kind of tale of when I actually was not in a space of what I would call monetary prosperity, and meaning that my bank account was way low. And who out there
Been there, done
cannot,
that.
right? Um, And this was a couple of years ago when I was going through the process of growing my business and figuring out, how to let things flow and let go of control and allow for things to just show up. And I had booked a flight out to California. I was supposed to go to my brother's house out in San Francisco. And, I had purchased that flight a couple months back in December. And so I was gearing up for this trip and keep looking at my bank account and I'm so stressed out and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any money. Like I this bill is going to go through and it's going to create a negative balance. Like what am I going to do? I'm supposed to get on a plane and go and, I can't, my credit cards were, all kind of taking care of different things. So I couldn't actually access the cash that I needed to get where I needed to go. And I was like, okay, I was in such a state of like being so terrified and afraid. And this was a real big learning process for me. And it got to a place where as I was arriving to this, sort of vacation, I did go negative and I was sort of in a space where if I used my financial, kind of support that I had with the bank, that I would just keep kind of overdrafting, and it would create even a bundle of more kind of deficit.
Right.
So I remember laying in my bed and I just said, God, I surrender. I truly surrender because I was trying to, do this sale and give this away and do that. And I was like, and, do all these things. I was pushing like humanly very hard for it to figure it out. And I remember laying in my bed and I said, I surrender to you. I surrender to you, universe. I surrender to you, creator. I give it all to you. And I give it to you with all my heart, all my soul, because I know you wouldn't have brought me on this path this far, this long, if I was not meant to learn something extraordinary for myself. I see poverty. I know it. I can feel it. I'm living it. So help me see. I'm ready for the answer. What do I need to know? And it was really incredible in that moment. It was like this beautiful light kind of started to emerge over the crown of my head, and it just sort of pulled me, and it was saying, "Come out of your body, come out." And so I just started to lift from my body, and I sort of came, into this kind of like light tunnel that was sort of bringing me towards a bigger, beautiful light. And I didn't fight it. I didn't like, I just let go. And it was just all of a sudden, I was just in this beautiful, magical light being sort of space in time. And it hit me. It was like, oh, I'm with God. I'm with the creator. And there was just a reemergence of love and support and eternity and just so endearing. And I heard inside myself, you're in the heart of the creator. And
Wow.
so yeah, I stayed there and I said, okay, I'm going to
How's
be
that for
okay.
abundance?
I'm going to be okay. And I remember I just gently came down after that. And I'm not kidding you. This is so incredible. I looked down at my phone, and one of my long-term clients had sent me a PayPal and said, I just got this inspiration to pick up and do an extra series with you. I know you're on vacation next week. And she just sort of took by the, inspiration. She had put down, like, I think it was like a couple $1,000s to do a series with me. And I was like, no way.
Wow.
And I started
Unprompted.
crying. Yeah, I was just like, what? Because, I had put all these circulations for different things for people to come and take action and do this stuff. And I was pushing so hard. And there it was. It landed and I got to jump on the plane the next morning and enjoy the trip. And, ever since I changed my story around my money and my conversation with pushing and my paradigm of success. And things have been completely different. I've never experienced to the level and the degree in which I did. And I needed to be there and I needed to have that. But what was
Sure.
so beautiful was that It was all taken care of. I didn't need to do any of the hard work. I didn't need to push. I just needed to remember my connection to source and my expression of it through myself. When I could allow myself to be in that space, I could receive. And that was the ultimate turning point of then now growing this beautiful 6-figure business, and just like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, and transforming it to be easy, and to just be in sync with the source, with creator. And so that is my story that I'll leave everybody to think about in synchronicity. You know, if there's something out there that you want, you desire, surrender, let go, give it to source,
I
and
love it.
ask them to take care of it. And just open
Yeah.
yourself up to let yourself receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. It reminds me of, I'm writing a book right now that came through major synchronicity, and dream state, and the amount of synchronicity has been next level. And it's called The
Wow.
Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. And when I looked up the
Ooh.
title that was kind of came through, I found from 1931 a pamphlet called The Golden Key. And it's all about that. It's like whenever you're having any struggle, the Golden Key from 100 years ago, this guy Emmett
Yeah.
Fox, it was scientific prayer, essentially, he referred to it as. And just whenever you're having any problem or issue, focus on God, focus on
Yeah.
connecting with everything you know about the heart of God. What is that to you? And feel that. And he's like, don't trust me, see for yourself what will
Yeah.
happen, and what will happen to your quote unquote problem when you focus your vibration in that direction. And so, yeah, what a
That's
wonderful way to wind
beautiful.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when does that book come out? That sounds like a
Yeah, you
beautiful
know
book. I
what?
can't
I
wait.
just have decided on 11/11. I'm going to be releasing it. So I'm
Oh,
doing
nice.
a very me way of releasing it.
Roll out the red carpet.
I'm going to give it away for free, and then there's a whole gamification aspect of it to create abundance. So,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, so I'm super excited, and I've just had like an insane amount of, or a sane in a good way amount of synchronicity around it. It's been so great, and super excited to share it with everyone. So.
Cool. Well, let it be enjoy. Let it be enjoy. That's beautiful. I love
Yes.
that. Yeah.
I took a note during you talking about joy to focus on that, and also include a piece about it in the book. So thank you for that inspiration.
Oh, yay. I love it. This is so great. I love this conversation tonight. My whole body's all lit up. So, yes.
Me too. Me too. Thank you for being such a light. You know, as someone who is so fiery, and, you know, it's every time I connect with someone like yourself who's so soothing, it's like, ah, yes, more of that, you know? So thank you for being you. It's been so awesome. For those who want to connect and want more
Yeah.
soothing Elizabeth energy, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a beautiful website. It's called elizabethtripp.com. Here you can take a life design quiz where you can see where you're at in your own journey, and if you're ready to start designing and creating a life that you love. So I invite everybody to head over there. And when you do, when you actually take action and sign up to work with me, if you mention positive head in the exchange of taking time to actually really get some scheduled hours on the calendar for me, you'll get 10% off that whole program of empowered souls that I offer for people to transform their lives and start designing. And if you just want to have some free, kind of really great ways to connect and build community, head over to Facebook. I also have an Empowered Soul Facebook program where I love to have people kind of join in. We do 5-day challenge every couple of weeks and get people motivated, shifting, changing, and loving their life and their bodies. And all of what is in this beautiful world that we live. So that is how we'll connect. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. And I know the listeners, the ones that feel really called to, perhaps go down the path of working with you, certainly appreciate you giving them the P-head discount, as I affectionately refer to them as. So,
I love
that's
that.
that's very cool of you. And so they just mention
Yeah.
that to you, or do they use a coupon code or something, or they just
Yeah,
say through Positive?
we'll put it in the coupon code. So when you sign
Oh,
up
okay.
on my calendar and you take action there to work with me in any capacity, you can put positive head in all caps, and that will give you the 10% off the
Cool.
programs, which is actually pretty hefty gift there for them.
Cool.
So
That's
it saves a bundle for them. And it gives them kind of an access point to stay listening and growing and evolving as both of us orbit in their life. So how fun is
Yes.
that?
It's so
Both
much
you and
fun.
I.
I have so enjoyed orbiting with you today, and I know everyone out there listening has enjoyed orbiting with us. And I do have one final question for you
Sure.
as we wind down here, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Elizabeth Tripp?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna say joy. Really, joy
I
and
like that answer.
it's just joy and great gratitude. Joy and gratitude, everyone. Just be in joy and gratitude for what is.
That's the key to unlocking more, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is so
Love, love,
powerful.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, all of you out there listening, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. This has been quite the journey. And until next time, Elizabeth, journey well. Thank you for sharing. And all of you out there listening, journey well. Until next time. Love you so, so much. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you about the game with the universe on our website. You can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time. And if you go to positivehead.com/universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to spark the curiosity of friends and family by having them choose a number, so they'll hopefully go and check out their number as well, which I greatly appreciate because it helps us to spread the word about the podcast. Once again, the address is positivehead.com/universe. And as a quick reminder, if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them almost every day, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I cannot stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so. I have my favorite, the appleberry shake, at least 5 times a week. Once again, to learn more about the Purium transformation, go to positivehead.com/transformation. Or if you want to keep it simple and just try out my favorite, the appleberry shake, you can go straight over to ishoppurium.com and be sure to use code positivehead for 25% off. I'll spell that for you. It's ishoppurium.com. And be sure to use your Positive Head 25% coupon code.